Okay, good morning and welcome everyone to the April 20th, 2022 meeting of the Transit Commission. I've received no regrets. Could the Commission Coordinator please proceed with the roll call?
Councillor Brockington.
Here.
Commissioner Caricato.
Here.
Councillor Gower.
Here.
Or apologies, Commissioner Gower. Commissioner Kavanagh.
Here.
Commissioner McKinney. Commissioner Olsen.
Here.
Commissioner Curry.
Here.
Commissioner Tierney.
Present.
Commissioner Williams. Commissioner Wright Gilbert.
Here.
Vice Chair Coetzee.
Present.
Chair Hubley.
Here.
You have quorum, Chair.
Thank you very much. Are there any declarations of interest? Okay, seeing none, can we please confirm the minutes of the Transit Commission meeting of Wednesday, March 30th? Are they confirmed or does anybody have any corrections?
Confirmed.
Confirmed. Thank you. Okay. Our first item is the Confederation Line bus and Paratranspo service update. And I believe, Renee, you do have a presentation for that. So we might as well go right into that because I think we're going to hold all the items today anyway. So if you want to, whenever you're ready, Renee, if you want to start with your presentation.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning, everyone. As always, it's a pleasure for me to be with you today. Before I take you through my updates, I would like to start by thanking the team and all the employees at Transit Services and Untitled for their continued dedication, a strong first quarter, and for bringing our system safely through a long winter. You will recall that staff overcame significant challenges in the past several months, from historic snow events to the disruptions in our downtown core. Their expertise has led us to an increased reliability on all modes of transit, and they should be very proud of these efforts. Our team is now hard at work to prepare for the upcoming service change, which will match up with seasonal ridership. The spring also means ramping up construction on stage 2 of our light rail system. Exciting to come. Today, I would like to update you on the state of our system and share some exciting new developments. Maybe we can put the first page, please. You may also notice that today's presentation looks different. As I've mentioned to you since my arrival, key performance metrics are an area of focus and essential to running our business well. This new format improves the way we communicate information and update to you. Our aim is to provide more consistency and make information more accessible. So sharing this with you on a regular basis is very important. For today's update, I will begin by answering some outstanding questions from our last meeting. I will then provide you with some progress updates. Next, Pat Scrimger will share some Paratranspo's KPIs and will update you on Myparatranspo, which is now available for all Paratranspo customers. After that, I will give you the monthly performance report of our rail and bus operations and review 2022 transit ridership to date for all modes. Finally, I will update you on Untitled battery electric bus program. As promised, I would like to begin our update by answering some questions from our March 30th meeting about the returning ridership demographics. On this topic of ridership, we continue to monitor monthly ridership changes. An origin destination survey will take place this fall. This is part of the city's transportation master plan. Staff will use the data collected to better understand what new and returning customers are using our transit system. About improving real-time bus tracking. On real-time bus tracking, I'm happy to confirm that we have recently completed several technical back-end improvements for our existing app. Progress that will be visible for customers is in the works. These upgrades will improve the reliability and accuracy of next bus predictions provided to customers. In addition, a new API has been implemented to improve the quality of the data that we publish for app developers. The accuracy of this bus stop data and scheduled travel times are continuously checked and updated. As well, new improvements are being implemented for Paratranspo bus control and dispatch system. About half of the bus fleet has been switched over the new system so far, with the rest to be switched over the months to come. With these improvements, customers are already getting more accurate and more reliable predictions of when buses will arrive at their stops. We will look for further improvements to the way we publish data and the way we present data through the Transport app. We will keep the Transit Commission informed of our progress. About the information gathering and outreach, I would also like to take an opportunity to follow up on the question on information gathering and outreach. It has been 6 months since I joined the city of Ottawa. My vision of Transpo's future is forming as I meet with customers, staff members of Council, the Transit Commission, and stakeholders. I'm building networks in Ottawa to get feedback from diverse communities. I have joined Ottawa's CEO Forum. I have met with representatives of major Ottawa employees and transit stakeholders, such as the University of Ottawa. I have worked with the Integrated Community and Social Service team, met outreach with the New Canadians to discuss transit, and regularly visit all Transpo facilities to meet directly with staff. My vision is being formed by working with our community, and outreach with our customers will take place in the next steps. Engagement will be coordinated and inclusive. Outreach advertising. Finally, on the subject of outreach advertising, I can confirm that we have received the new advertising agreement with Transpo's contractor, Patterson. It is currently undergoing a legal review. This expansion of the ad contract includes advertising inside Outreach vehicles and stations. We will continue to provide updates as the agreement is signed and comes into effect. I would now like to provide an important update on our search for permanent Chief Safety Officer. Next slide, please. I'm very pleased to confirm that yesterday, our new Chief Safety Officer, Paul Tributat, officially joined Transpo. Our leadership team looks forward to using Paul's skills and expertise to improve safety across our organization and build in-house capacity to increase independent safety accountability for our rail and bus system. We will all give Paul some time to settle into his new role and adjust to the team. But Paul is here today, and I would like to now invite him to turn on his camera and say a quick hello to all of you. Please, Paul.
Thank you, Renee. Thank you, Renee. Really appreciate this. Thank you. Very excited to join the leadership team at Transpo and to lead a safety management agenda for the entire enterprise. My career has focused on safety management. In particular, I spent 17 years with the National Research Council, in leadership, executive leadership roles relating to research, engineering, and testing of ground vehicles and rail vehicles. And throughout that leadership experience at the NRC, I managed the implementation of a hazard prevention program in accordance with the Canada Labour Code Part 19. So I'm fairly well versed at safety management, and as well, I worked recently, the last 2 years, with the Transportation Safety Board as the Director of Investigations for rail and pipeline modes. I'm very excited to be here, and I look forward to a bright future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paul, and welcome again. I would also like to thank Dwayne Duquette for his service over the past number of months as our interim Chief Safety Officer. He will continue as the Deputy CSO working with Paul. Next slide, please. With the hiring of the new Chief Safety Officer, our leadership team is almost complete. The recruitment of our new leadership position, the Director of Engineering Services, is underway. Next slide, please. Something I know that it's top of mind is masking requirements on transit. I would like to remind our customers that masks are still mandatory on all Olsen Transpo and Paratranspo buses, on O-Train, and all transit stations. Thank you for doing your part by masking up and keeping you and your fellow transit riders safe. I'm pleased to report that mask compliance on Ottawa's transit system remains high. Special constables continue to monitor mask compliance. As you are aware, the transit bylaw was amended in June 2020, making mask mandatory on Olsen Transpo. We are working closely with Ottawa Public Health on our masking messaging and policy. We are taking every measure to ensure the continued safety of our customers. On April 27th, the province of Ontario's masking mandate for public transit is currently scheduled to end. We have heard that the province of Ontario may be extending this deadline, but we are waiting for an official statement. Should the provincial mandate end, we will continue to use the transit bylaw to maintain the current masking requirement on our system for the foreseeable future. This is based on advice from OPH. As the transit bylaw currently stands, masking requirements will remain in place after April 27th on all modes of Olsen Transpo transit. We will continue to communicate to customers that they must wear a mask on transit. We will also increase enforcement across the system to educate transit riders and ensure compliance. And we will await further instructions from the province and follow all legislation. Thank you again to all our customers for wearing masks on Olsen Transpo. And with that, I would now like to pass the floor to Pat Scrimger. Pat will begin by sharing some positive Paratranspo performance indicators and update you on the recent launch of Myparatranspo. Next slide, please. Over to you, Pat.
Thank you, Renee. And good morning, Chair and Commissioners. If we can go to the next slide, please, Eric. Here are some of the statistics about Paratranspo operation in the first 3 months of 2022, and we'll have more information for you later, and you can see how ridership compares with previous years, particularly with 2019 being the last year pre-pandemic. During those 3 months, we had 374,000 trips that were booked and provided. 96% of our trips have been delivered on time within the promised 30-minute window that customers request. Our phone response times are good right now. They're approximately 3 minutes on average when people connect. But as you know, we've got the new online booking availability that started last week, and that may change that number. You can see there, so far we've had 579 online bookings in the first 3 months of the year from the pilot group who were testing that process. And then finally around to the right, you asked last time about the number of complaints that we had received. So far in the first 3 months of 2022, there have been 416 comments come in from customers. And the 4 most common categories were questions about paying their fares, questions about staff and contractor behavior, questions about on-time performance, and resolving errors with people's bookings. So work continues, of course, on all of those to address customers' needs and to improve the way we deliver the service. If we can go to the next slide, please, Eric. I'll just talk a little bit about Myparatranspo and then show you some information in more detail. The Myparatranspo, this is the new feature on octranspo.com, the new website or the new part of the website that we've been talking about for some time now, which allows customers to manage their account, to book trips, and to cancel any trips that they no longer need. It also includes real-time vehicle tracking of the bus as it approaches people, so that they know when their bus is coming. Still to come in future phases, we will be working on a pickup and reminder notification so we can give people a notice the day before of which trips they have booked for the next day, and then also a confirmation just before the vehicle comes to pick them up that the trip is on its way. And our next phase after that will be to bundle this into a downloadable smartphone app that people can use on their phone. So Eric, if you can set things up so that I can share my screen now, I'll give a short overview of what Myparatranspo looks like. Thanks.
You should be able to share your screen, Pat.
Thank you, Eric. Could you let me know when you can see octranspo.com on the screen?
I can see it, Pat.
Okay, thank you, everybody. So this is our normal octranspo.com that you're familiar with. I'll go a little slowly here to make sure that the graphics refresh on everyone's screen. Over here on our Paratranspo section of the app, of the website, I'm sorry, Myparatranspo is now listed as the second item. We click on Myparatranspo, and an introductory page comes up, provides some basic information about how to use Myparatranspo. Anyone who needs it, there's a very detailed walkthrough of how to do everything here. Click on this box here to sign in. And we come to this page. Well, I've already signed in, I'm sorry. So it comes to a page where people can sign in. I've got a test account here called Jane Test 7. And she lives at this address. And you can see here on the screen that on Jane Test 7's calendar, there have been a number of trips booked. They're all showing red because we did cancel them because we didn't want to actually send a bus for these fictitious trips. So anyone who clicks on trips can see this in a calendar view, or they click up here and they get it in an agenda view, showing all of the trips that they have booked in the past, and then those that they've booked in the future, which I'll show you in a second. For anyone who's using this on a computer with a widescreen, this calendar view is what they'll see first. For anyone who's using this on their smartphone, they will see the agenda view first because it's more compact. So to book a trip, we go to Book Trip. And there is an ability here to rebook a trip that's been made recently. But let's do this by saying we're going to travel from the Transpo offices at 1500 Saint Laurent Boulevard. Pickup instructions are to pick up at the main door. Drop-off details, we'll select Billings Bridge Shopping Center. And we'll say that we want to go to the well, it doesn't really matter, but let's just say we'll go to the east doors. We want to be picked up tomorrow. All of the bookings are for the next day. And we want to be picked up at, let's say we want to be picked up at 10 o'clock tomorrow. Do I need to bring any mobility aids with me? Yes, I do. Will I be bringing with me a service animal, an electric wheelchair? Do I need the front seat, a manual chair, oxygen scooter walker? Well, I will have my service animal and my electric wheelchair. Do I need to add a support person? Yes, I do, because that's set in this by default. And all of these things remembers what each customer is looking for and needs for their needs regularly. So here's the summary. Now asking to confirm this, the date will be tomorrow. The requested time will be 10 o'clock. There's one support person coming who does not need a mobility aid, a service animal, and an electric wheelchair. And we say confirm booking. Your trip is booked successfully. The booking ID is this. Please select one of the following buttons below. So we can book a return trip. We can book a second trip. We could ask for those details again, or we can say view trips, go back to the calendar. Now you can see that trip is right here on the calendar for tomorrow, the 21st, with a green dot, meaning it's been confirmed. We're going to click on that. We get a map of where the trip is from and to, all of the details that were here. But because this is a demonstration for you, because this is in a test account, I'm now going to cancel the trip so that we don't actually send a bus tomorrow to pick up this person. And are you sure you want to cancel? Yes, I am. And then the trip has been canceled successfully. So that's the basics of Myparatranspo. We're at this point because of great collaboration from our customers. Our customers that have been involved in this for, from the very beginning on setting what the specifications were that we needed, and for helping us with testing. We rolled this out with a small group of people who've been using this for over a year, and then with a next larger group of people who've been using it since last summer. And now it's open to everyone, and it's been working quite well. And we're hoping that more and more people will use it. For the very short term, our staff are watching every booking that's made, calling back any customers who may have apparently had any trouble with it. And also for the very short term, we're also maintaining the temporary web forms that people have been able to use for the last couple of years. And then we'll close down those once everyone's moved over to use Myparatranspo. And with that, I'll turn you back to Renee.
Thank you very much, Pat. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of people who have been involved for this Paratranspo. It's an important tool for the Paratranspo's customer. And Pat, again, did an amazing job as a captain of this group. And thank you so much, Pat, and thank to you too, to your team too. Next slide, please. I would like to next slide too. Just be prepared because I will switch in French now. So nous allons regarder.
Well, we've looked at the performance for March. Now, this is a graph that you'll see at each meeting in the future. Now, on one page. And this really shows you how OC Transpo is working. On the left, you have service availability. Everything is in the green. So good results there last month. I'll be sharing those with you soon. In terms of ridership, we're in the middle. You'll see that the upward trend is ongoing, but it's not as high as we would have liked. In terms of Paratranspo, I don't think we need to add anything because it's been an excellent month for Paratranspo users, especially given the demonstration that Pat's just given us. We're in the green. So this really gives you an idea of how things are going. Now, if we want to look at the details, let's look at the next page, please. Very quickly, you're familiar with this because we saw this last time at the last meeting. Here you see that the number, well, you see the conventional bus service availability. You can see that there are some areas where we had some difficulties. We had snowstorms, we had Omicron, the convoy, for example. Those were problem areas, so we're going to continue to work to improve our service delivery on a daily basis. What you see in green is April. We're improving 99.2% approval. Thank you. Next page. Now, this is an answer to your questions. Now here we have the number of buses on a daily basis compared to the number we require. So what we see required is 524, and in gray you see the number of buses that we actually have. In orange, those are days where we had difficulty having the right number of buses, and that's when the control center had to do miracles. I'd like to thank them because they do it on a daily basis. If we look at the next slide, please. Now, what we see here is that the afternoons are more difficult because the buses have been out on the road, some break down. Sometimes there's a lack of drivers, a shortage of drivers. So we have to make sure that we properly monitor our data to make sure that there are not too many issues with service. I'd just like to remind you now, at the last meeting of the committee, I reminded you that we will be coming into compliance with new legislation. The Commission had given us permission to take on 80 new drivers. We're adding them now to our OC Transpo system. Unfortunately, starting on Sunday, when we start a new way of doing things, we'll have to adapt. And we know that there will be capacity issues in terms of drivers. Good news, our recruitment team is working very, very hard. We're working hard on training, and we're focusing all our energy so that we can have the necessary number of drivers so that we can provide we can be in full compliance with the law and serve our clientele as well. Next slide, please. Now for LRT. Great news. Yesterday, we had 35 LRVs, 17 trains. We needed 15 for April, as you know. I'd also like to remind you that we want to have 11 because this is what we really need. Once again, I would remind you that in blue, this is the availability. It's normal that we have some red, we have some maintenance issues, for example. So this is a snapshot of yesterday, and today we have 16 trains available, and we need 11. Next slide, please. Now, we have 15 trains, and we're looking at an increase in rates starting in May. We've always had 15 trains. Some days we have 17, even 18. We're very, very proud of the results. And once again, it's our users who are benefiting from this. These are the people we're working for at the end of the day. Next slide, please. Now, here we have the level of service. reliability. It's great to have trains availability, but do we have reliability in January and February? We talked about those months. January was a bit tougher, but March, 99%. So that's excellent. There was also a question last time as to when we used R1. In orange, you can see those are times where we had to use our R1, our R1s. So that information is now available. Next slide, please. Let's look at ridership very, very quickly now. And now the trend is on the up and up. We're seeing a rise in ridership. I would remind you also that we had the free month or the free period in March. I'd like to show you here in black and gray. What you see here are our projections for this year are in red, the stars. That's our comparison with 2019. Next slide, please. The same thing here for Paratranspo. You can see that Paratranspo is doing very, very well. This is good news. At the same time, I would say that we will be twinning our buses to make sure that all users are able to actually to catch the bus at the right time. So we're aware that people who needed to be transported on their own will continue to have this service available to them. This service is good and will remain so. Now, that really completes the update of our business. Now, I'd just like to move on to the next slide. I'm going to be talking to you about the issue of zero emission buses. For those of you who have not seen what our buses look like, we have a very short video that we'd like to share with you now.
Merci, il est magnifique. Je l'aime beaucoup. Si vous avez pas eu la
Thank you. It's great. I just love it. Please try it. We can be very proud of our train. So I'd just like to remind you, because I haven't talked about this in a long time. Don't want to come back on the past decisions. We were mandated to go towards a pilot and so on. So in Q4 in 2021, we had the pleasure of officially launching the 4 e-buses. And we took the required time to make sure that everything was fine with the buses. And on February 7, we greeted our first passengers on these 4 buses, and we are very, very, very proud of this once again. I can't say it enough. It's such a good thing for the customers, but for the earth also. We have a lot of information. Here's a bit. We know that we need about 4 hours to have a complete charge. Again, we did more than 45,000 kilometers. We can go just about everywhere with these buses. It's a source of pride because there's no privileged route, you know, it can go everywhere. So once again, if you have the opportunity to try them, do. Here, I just want to remind you that the Commission mandated the General Manager in 2021 to work with Hydro Ottawa to look at the electrical grid for all these buses, and that's what's being done right now. We're working with Roy, who's with us for the financial model, and a group from Ottawa Hydro looking at the purchasing of chargers and so on. We have the opportunity of working with these partners that are very knowledgeable because we don't have that expertise internally. And we're also doing our due diligence, however. So I'm very happy to tell you today that we will have someone that will be reviewing all the discussions that we'll have with Hydro Ottawa to ensure that we have the best quality at the best price for OC Transpo customers. So generally speaking, where we're at, currently we are at activity 2. I mean, we'll be getting some funding now. It is absolutely necessary. Otherwise, the conversion to electricity would not be possible. I think that by the end of the spring, we will have a favorable answer. And we're working with Deloitte on a financial model. We also are working with Hydro Ottawa so that the financial model meets all our criteria. And the Bank of Infrastructure Bank is our partner for the balance of the amount that we'll need to borrow. Also, we had an audit done of our pilot for the 4 buses, and what the Auditor General said was to reduce the number of 74 buses. But so today, I can tell you that we are taking action on this. That's why we'll buy a first lot of 26 buses, and then we will go ahead with the rest of the buses that we can see on the next slide. There. You can see that we are still working with our partners, Bank Infrastructure Bank, Infrastructure Canada, Hydro Ottawa, and we intend to buy 26 e-buses first, and then gradually we'll go up to 450 by 2027. We're also working on the garage transition, and if ever we have a new vendor for the buses, we will redo the test, the due diligence, and as always, and I remind you here that we will present an upgrade to the Commission where we're at, what amount we're at, how we did our due diligence, and so on. Unfortunately, today, I must say that we're a little behind time-wise, not because we didn't work hard enough, but because Infrastructure Canada has not given us the authorization to get the funding. So, but rest assured, we're working relentlessly to move ahead with the call for offers for the buses. It will happen in the next few days. There's no contracts will be granted until the financial model is finished. But we're still doing a lot of work in parallel. So there, I think that completes my report for you today. I hope you appreciated the new format, a clearer slides dealing straight with the information. And if you have any questions, we're here to answer them.
Okay, thank you very much, Renee. There was a lot of good news in that presentation, and I'll give you my personal feedback as I do like the format of the slides and the presentation. I think you gave us a little peek into each part of our operations there, so I sincerely appreciate it. Before we go to questions, I want to let everybody know that TRA, Daniel, Christopher, and Ken from TRA are here to answer any questions as well today, if you want to direct anything their way. And I'm going to ask one question before I go to the first of the commission members. Renee, you mentioned that the e-buses that they've been tried on a number of different routes, and that you believe now that they could work all the routes. At the start, when we were talking about this pilot, we didn't think they would work well on the longer routes that OC Transpo has. So can you confirm that they've also been tested on the long routes for the full schedule and they're able to work?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, for sure that we have a maximum of capacity of those. So the problem is we cannot launch the service with one e-bus, let's say at 6 o'clock, and it cannot come back at 2 o'clock the next day if we have, let's say, 300 kilometers. But I don't think so. And Pat is here, or Jim can jump for sure. But actually, we tried 70 routes, and everything has been okay. The thing is, we have to make sure that they will be able to run the maximum of kilometers, and to make sure that we don't need to tour the bus.
And one more question on that. I'm wondering if it's possible, if you could let the commission members and councillors know when you're going to put an e-bus on a route in their area. Are we scheduling this like a week or two in advance that we could share that information with people? Because I'm sure there's members that would love the chance to get out and see the e-bus in their own neighborhood. Is that something we can do?
Thank you, Chair. Absolutely, Jim. I know that we're doing that on a daily basis, but maybe because people, if people want to be able to try them, we can force that we can do it on a weekly basis instead of doing it on a daily basis. So we can say, okay, this week it will be there. Can you complete, please, Jim?
For sure. We can make contact out. It's all scheduled engineering testing, so it does, and we can make those arrangements in advance notice for sure.
Okay, thank you. Because I know like commission members like Councillor Tierney are very good at putting little videos and that together, and I'm sure he'll help promote our e-bus if he knew it was going to be in his neighborhood. Okay, thank you. So let's go to questions. Councillor Brockington, you're first up.
Thanks, Chair. Good morning to you and colleagues. Thank you, Renee, for a very detailed presentation. As usual, para ridership and bus train ridership in March went up, I think quite handsomely compared to February. What were the causes for the increase in ridership?
Okay, for sure that I think that the provincial lift a lot of measures regarding the Omicron. So, sorry, I have my translation, sorry. And probably because it was no fair, it's helpful for sure. But I think that because people started to I've started to go out again, but let's wait in April to make sure that we're okay to conclude that. But I think it's a new life now. Pat, do you have something else to add? Please feel free.
Thanks, Renee. The other thing which I can suggest would have been part of it is that right during the month of February may have been depressed a little bit, held down because of the demonstrations going on downtown and the difficulty we had in providing transit service. So the increase in March, in addition to being related to the no charge fares in the downtown routes, in addition to the, you know, the lifting of some of people's feelings about the pandemic, may also have been that February was lower than it would otherwise have been just because of the protests downtown.
This analysis is critical for this commission to understand why our ridership is going up, why it's going down, why we're not meeting ridership estimates made for 2022, why we're so divergent compared to 2019. This is the analysis, the macro level analysis that's missing from the presentations. You're giving us raw data. Today you're speculating, but we really, as a commission, need to understand why the data is what it is so we can make really firm decisions, particularly at budget time. Every meeting I ask about two main cohorts, it's not in your presentation. Still, after 2 years, you don't talk about federal public servants and post-secondary education students. Two largest pre-COVID users of transit that are missing. There's no update. So what is the latest update on these cohorts riding public transit now and in the short to medium terms? What are their numbers?
We'll try, Councillor, thank you, Chair. We'll try to find a solution for sure. And for the next transit, I will try with my team to get focus on that particular info. But you know as well that with the Omicron, it's very hard, and we were expecting that the ridership will increase for sure. We'll need the federal workers come back, and we'll need new customers too. Not only those we lost, but we'll try. But I cannot promise anything because I'm not sure if it will be possible to do the breakdown, but we'll try for sure.
Yeah, again, you've presented to the commission today your targeted or estimated monthly ridership. You have a new row there where you've actually provided us what you believe are the estimated numbers per month, and we're not meeting them. We're grossly divergent from meeting those rows. I think you have an obligation to explain to the commission why we formulated a 2022 budget. We have ridership stats estimates for the whole year. We're not even coming close to those estimates. So you have to explain every month to us why we're not meeting those targets. You set those targets. We're grossly not meeting those targets. And I want to understand why. When ridership goes up, this is very good news. We have to understand why. How are we attracting new riders? How can we put more resources and emphasis to retain those riders and attract more riders? That's the information as a transit commissioner I need to help make decisions going forward. And that's been a big gap in data. So raw data is excellent. I love to see the data that you present every month, but we need a better understanding of what that data means. And some of these questions I've been asking, Chair, as you know, for over 2 years now. I have a litany of questions. I'm going to yield the floor now because I'd like to hear what my colleagues have to say, and Chair, I might come back on to ask a few more. So thank you.
Okay, I think Councillor Brockington, in all fairness to staff here, we've known from the outset that the projections they put together were based on the idea that the federal public service, as you correctly pointed out, the federal public service and the students that use the U-passes are our two biggest cohorts of riders. And in fairness to staff, the expectation at the start of the year or when the budget was being put together, the expectation was that those public servants would be returning to work just as our city employees have been returning to work and others. But it's clear as recently as yesterday with the minister's statements, there isn't any organized effort within the federal public service to bring people back to work. So the reality is sinking in here, as you're pointing out with the numbers, Councillor, that we may never get to achieve that the height of ridership that we had pre-pandemic if the move to work from home settles in as the way forward for the federal public service. So I have to suggest to you that's a little unfair to put it on staff to within days of receiving the ridership numbers for the month of March to be able to give you that kind of in-depth analysis that's really just going to tell us that the federal public servants have not come back to work. I think we know that, correct?
We've never had that clarification, even going back to when we were debating the 2022 budget, Chair. I've asked consistently, just show me the evidence that the number of staff we're providing us for 2022 could be substantiated by their discussions with the federal government and or the universities. And that was never proven. So this is not a recent issue. We've always had concerns that the estimate staff presented now 5 months ago were never confirmed. So it's not recent. Thank you, Chair.
No, you're right, Councillor Brockton. It's not recent. The city manager directly has been dealing with the PMO, not PMO, but PCO, to try to get those numbers and Treasury Board. And to credit to the minister, she's at least now speaking publicly, saying that where she's at with this, and that she's not ready to ask people to return to work like we at the city and others have done. So it's not Renee that's dealing with the federal public service. It's at the city manager level and the mayor's level. And publicly, we're hearing the results of their efforts. So I appreciate that you keep bringing it up. I would ask that you don't put that on our staff, that there are other people that are supposed to, that I shouldn't say supposed to, they are trying to get those numbers from the federal government and get some clear indication, because our budget will be a mess at the end of the year if they do not return to work. You're absolutely right, and we knew that going into it. It's just we don't have the levers to get them to make a commitment to put to encourage their people to return to work. So thank you for your questions. Commissioner Wright-Gilbert, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Can I just ask, and I'm making this suggestion to everybody, that when we are talking about the federal public service returning, it's not returning to work. As a federal public servant, I've been working my butt off the last 2 years from this very chair. It's not returning to work, it's returning to an office building. There is far too much, and I can tell you this from experience as a federal public servant when I'm not in this meeting, there's far too much vitriol towards public servants and the amount of work that we do. I can tell you that in my public service career that is 13 years so far, I've never worked with a lazy person. So can I just ask my colleagues and anybody else who's listening that when we're talking about federal public servants returning to something, it's not work, it's off to the office. I personally have worked nights, weekends, burned myself out. So I'm just asking that, I know you're not doing it on purpose, Mr. Chair. I'm just asking sort of from a discussion point.
Sure enough, Commissioner, I think it's understood. I would hope it would be understood that when we say return to work, but if you're experiencing people telling you that they believe that what we're talking about is that you're not working at all, then you're right that we should start referring to it as, wordsmith what we're saying and refer to it as workplace. I happen to know from having public servants in my own area that a lot of them are not able to work. If they work on secure systems such as CSE or CSIS or even StatsCan, a lot of them can't do any work from home. So it's not that every single public servant is able to fulfill 100% of their duties from home. But working from home is a new model that the public service may show a lot of leadership to the rest of the country. And I'm not judging whether it's good to work from home better than working from the workplace. What I'm focused on, and I think everybody else here is, it's the ridership numbers for the transit service. If federal public service and students do not return to the workplaces in the core, then we need to revisit our whole model, not just the budget, but the whole model of service. So thank you. I'll certainly heed your advice and start using the term workplace to make it very clear what we're talking about. So I appreciate that.
Thank
Did you have any other questions, Commissioner?
Of course I do. But thank you for that. So that actually leads me into my second point. When this budget was developed, we're talking about in retrospect, the budget and the effects on ridership. When it was developed, Councillor Brockington, myself, and others expressed concern about the ridership projections for the year, concern that they were not based in reality. We've been in a pandemic state for over 2 years now, since March 2020, with people working from their homes, working remotely. And not just the federal public servants, but Shopify and others, large employers in the downtown core. We have a public transit system that seems to be designed to bring people who work downtown from the suburbs into downtown. That was a decision that was made long ago. Here's the thing. We live in a new reality. The world has changed drastically in the last 2 years. People are working hybrid workplaces. There are people working from home, people choosing to no longer, be employed by an employer, but to become self-employed. But these people still require public transit. We want people to take public transit. We're in a climate crisis. Of course, we want people to take public transit. It's a public good. My question is, what is OC Transpo doing to prepare for the new reality? And it's a reality. We can't keep pushing the federal government, and I'll be careful on how I comment on this because I am conflicted a bit. In my view, we cannot continue to push the federal government to force its workers back to an office space. That's not a solution to our problems of ridership. That's relying on an old model. What is OC Transpo doing to prepare for the new reality of what the new model is, which is a lot of our ridership is working from home? What is OC Transpo doing to attract new customers in order to get our ridership numbers up, or make changes to our service levels or to our service model to prepare for this?
Thank you, Commissioner. Chair, I think that it's a fair question, because for sure, if we didn't have to deal with the Omicron, I think that the ridership should be probably higher than we can see actually. And we're doing a lot of benchmarking with our peers for sure, and we're trying to see what happened over there and why some places as in Switzerland, why people came back to the office, and why here probably will be under hybrid mode. And when we will understand everything, for sure we will have to work on the marketing to attract new customers. And I think that we will need probably to have a new monthly pass that to make sure that we adapt to the new reality with the way that we give the service. I think those kind of things that we're trying to get answered, and unfortunately for now we don't. And we will continue to update the Transit Commission for sure when we'll have some answers. In next month, I will have a meeting with the UITP, and I know that Pat is supposed to exchange with some peers in the UK, and for sure we will try to have those information and try to explain what we can do and to maintain the public transit here in Ottawa.
Thank you. While I accept that you're going to look to other jurisdictions in Europe and elsewhere as to why people are choosing to work from home or work from a remote location, I'm going to suggest that your time may be better spent accepting that as the new reality. Doesn't matter why. They're working from home. There's a lot of reasons why I choose to work from home and will continue to work from home. One of them is the commute. I'm not going to lie to you, but there's other reasons as well. It doesn't matter why. I think we need to actually accept that as the new reality that we now live within, and try to come up with ideas and ways to find new ridership, or structure our transit system so that it is not catering to a ridership that isn't there. That is the point I'm making. I just have a quick question about the 6 LRVs that were listed as unavailable on your in your presentation. You said some of them might be for maintenance. Were there any LRVs in that 6 that were that had any serious issues? Like what was wrong with them?
50 seconds left.
Thank you, Commissioner. Chair, it's normal that we have maintenance on LRVs. As I explained during last Transit Commission, we have three kinds of non-available LRVs. The first one is for preventive maintenance, which is good, predictive maintenance too, which is good too, and current curative maintenance. So those probably, let's say, maybe we can have a door fault, we will need to change the oil, those kind of things. It's definitely normal. If you see 0 out of service, you have to say that it's not a good maintenance because we need to have all the time vehicles that we will put some oil and will see with bumper to bumper if everything is okay. We have to verify that, so it's normal, and it's very, very, very good having 6 non-available.
I appreciate that, Ms. Amelkar, but you didn't actually answer my question. My question was the 6 LRVs that were unavailable. What were the issues with those 6 specific LRVs?
I don't know. Troy, maybe you can help me. Actually, because, as I said, sometimes we have preventive action. Preventive action, it's only just to go and to see if everything is okay. And it's very dynamic. So Troy, I will let you go. Maybe you have a little bit more info than I.
Sure, Mr. Chair. Not sure if I'll answer the question fully, but we will always have vehicles that are going to be in for maintenance purposes. And you have short-term, medium-term, and long-term maintenance practices. Short-term practices, include, like Madame Amelkar mentioned, you may have a door fault that needs to be repaired, or there was a train line communication issue that needs to be looked at. But also as well in those short-term is you have your 10,000 kilometer inspections that are real quick. They're usually less than a day, usually half a day to do. When you get into some of the medium-term and longer-term stuff, which we don't have any major issues on the trains that are currently unavailable. But what they're going through is they're going through their longer term inspections. We got vehicles right now that are approaching the 300 kilometers on these trains, and they're going through those series of inspections. Those inspections take several days to do because they do a much more in-depth review. Not much different than what we do on our bus fleet. But to answer your question, no major issues on any of the vehicles that are out of service, and it's all sort of standard day-to-day, month-to-month type activities that you'd normally see.
Can I ask, for the benefit of the commission, can I ask in the future if we're giving updates to say that there's some trains in maintenance that you can confirm which bucket those trains are in, whether it's just regular preventative maintenance or something, because it's a very valid question as to why are they not there. So could we do that, please, for the next time, provide some more detail on that?
Chair, actually, we have that for the snapshot. I have 3 non-available for short term, 1 for medium term, and 2 for the long term. But the next time I can break down what exactly is in short, medium, and high. Maybe Daniel, you are familiar with the market. Maybe you can give your opinion regarding the commissioner's question.
Sure, thank you. Good morning. For the breakdowns that Mr. Charter mentioned and that Madame Amelkar mentioned, I think that's a typical that's typical of what we're used to seeing at other transit properties, that there will be longer term preventive maintenance, very similar to what Troy and Renee both mentioned, and then shorter term activities. And for what it's worth, it's something that I pay close attention to every day in the service updates that the contractor team provides, and we pay very close attention to the throughput of the LRVs and the success of their maintenance planning, and I would confirm what's been said so far. There's longer term vehicles like the 6 that were called out in the presentation, but again, similar to what Troy mentioned, those are the ones that are longer term PMs, the things that take maybe longer than a shift or 2, longer than a day or 2 because of the scope of the preventive maintenance. So, and that is consistent with what we're used to seeing at other light rail properties as well. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Danielle. Commissioner Wright-Gilbert, I don't know if that, it doesn't give you a direct answer to your question. Would you prefer that staff get something to you and the rest of the commission to speak specific to those 6 in the days ahead? Is that something you'd like, or are you content with the notion that going forward they'll report out a little more detail than what's there today?
I would like them to provide an answer to this commission by email and then also going forward. And can I just say this? I know my time is up and I'm going to get back in the queue, but I just want to say this. I've sat on this commission since February 2019, and we're coming to the end. Every single meeting, I have to ask questions more than once because my question isn't answered. I'm given generic general information that's been repeated from the presentation. And I'm not going to lie to you, I'm sick of it. If I have to ask a question twice, it takes up more of the 5 minutes that is allotted to me for questions. And so while I can appreciate that you're trying to give me a general answer, in the future, if I am asking, or any of these commissioners and councillors are asking a specific question about specific things, such as my question, which was, what were the issues with the 6 LRVs that were unavailable as listed in your presentation? My expectation is that you were answering that specific question and not providing a general high-level overview of what it might be. I find it incredibly frustrating and, quite honestly, to be disrespectful. It's not just, I'm not aiming this at one individual. I am saying staff in general. I have a serious issue with how these questions are being answered, and I'm asking that going forward, you answer the question that is being asked of you rather than providing general information. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Next up is Commissioner Michael Olsen, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I'm gonna, on ridership, I'm gonna take a different perspective, I guess, than my colleagues. I see the buses half full rather than half empty. And I just look at the numbers. I'm not trying to defend OC Transpo. I'm just saying January ridership on the main line, not Paratranspo, was at 36% of 2019. February was 40% of 2019. And for March, it was 49% of 2019. So we're certainly headed in the right direction. We're not, as Councillor Brockington mentioned, we're not necessarily where we want to be. And Madame Amilcar, just a question. It looks like April and May are going to be very important months for ridership, the percentage. Have you made any internal projections as to where you think your staff think that ridership is going to be for April and May? Will it be at 50%, 60%? Any thought you've given to that?
Thank you, Commissioner. Chair, we don't, because we did the projection for the year, and we follow the trend for sure, and we follow the what the provincial will take as a decision, for the mask and as I said during my introduction, the provincial opened a lot of things that people come back again. People go out, so we hope sincerely that we'll have those benefits. But for sure, in April, in May will be very, very important for us to see if this trend is continuing to go on the right path. But we will continue to monitor exactly. I don't have another good answer to give to you, because it's projection, and we don't know actually exactly what will happen next month and the month after.
I understand that. Thank you. And I know you can't predict the future, neither can I. But at what point do you start to get a little bit worried about your projections for the year?
I think for sure when we did the projection last year for this year, we didn't know that we had to deal with Omicron. And now we have the B2 Omicron. So we know that it's very contagious. So probably that's why people stayed at home and they didn't go out. But now it's a sunny day today, and the spring is the summer is coming. Probably we'll be able to see people out, but we need to make sure that they will stay too. So that's why I think the question that I received before, and we're working on that, we have to attract those people. We have to attract new customers too, not only those who were there before. So it will be the big challenge for us, for sure.
Okay. And just on the masks, I want to make sure I understood that if the province says that the mask mandate should be continued, Ottawa, of course, will continue that. But if the province says it won't be, it'll be lifted, Ottawa Public Health has said that it will continue the mask mandate. Is that correct?
The Commission in June 2020 directed us to do so. So we will maintain this mask mandatory, and OPH is agree with us.
So we will not follow the province's guidance.
We will encourage and we will continue to ask people to wear masks on transit.
But will they be required?
Yes.
So we will not be following the province's guidance. We will be following OPH's guidance.
We will following this Transit Commission guidance.
But Mr. Commissioner, or Mr. Chairman, I just want to clarify that it wasn't necessarily the commission that provided guidance to OC Transpo. I think everything was based on information coming from Ottawa Public Health and their input into what was correct and safe. We are not public health officers. We don't do anything like that. And I would, for one, would say if the province is saying it's safe, that unless we see contradictory evidence or hear contradictory evidence from Ottawa Public Health, that we follow the province's guidelines, because there's no reason not to. I don't know if anybody from Ottawa Public Health is here, but the question that I would have is, has Ottawa Public Health indicated to OC Transpo what metrics or what data would be required to say, yes, we can finally lift the mask mandate? So I guess, Mr. Chairman, I have a question for you, but Madame Amilcar, same for you.
I'll answer that. It was a commission decision. We were the first transit authority in Canada to come in with a masking mandate. There's a bylaw that was in place for that. I'd have to check and see if there was an expiry date to that bylaw, but we were the first to bring one in. I can also share with you, because we're monitoring this, the province had a press conference at 10 o'clock with the Minister of Health and the Premier, and there was no mention of anything with the mask mandate. So we're not sure. They may do something later today or tomorrow or whatever to be clear on it. But as Ms. Amilcar mentioned, for the foreseeable future, we're just going to stay with encouraging everybody to wear their masks. And as we did throughout the pandemic, our OC Transpo security people will encourage people to wear their masks. They will some wear masks, but they're not wearing it properly. Like, I think we've all seen people with masks on their chin, which is really doing no benefit at all. And I know for a fact that the transit security folks will tell people, please put your mask on properly and so on. But one thing we will not start doing and have not done throughout this is expect the drivers to take their attention away from keeping the riders safe and driving the bus and ask the drivers to start enforcing a mask mandate. It'll stay with OC Transpo security.
But if the province lifts the mask mandate on transit, will OC Transpo be enforcing the mandate on OC Transpo?
I think the best approach to that, Commissioner, is if they do remove the mask mandate, it might be a good item to come back to the Commission to discuss, because one of the things we got to find out is our own bylaw still in force? We weren't worried about it because the province had brought in a mandate for masking. So ours automatically becomes secondary when the province has one in place. But I think you're raising a good issue. I think any decision on that or recommendations would have to be done in consultation with public health. But I think if the province changes what's there now, I take your point, and I think the majority of the commission would agree that it's something we're going to have to look at.
You cannot tell me now whether OC Transpo will continue to actually ticket or enforce the mandate if the province lifts it. Like actually,
my understanding is nobody's ticketing, Commissioner Olsen. Renee, could you confirm that? I don't believe any tickets have been issued for a while now.
No, effectively, Chair, what we're doing with the SCU, we do a lot of survey and we encourage people to wear masks. We give them masks and we help them to wear the mask properly. But we don't do tickets effectively because most of the time people can have a reason to not wearing his mask, but we enforce all the time.
We educate. I don't know that you would want to use the term enforce, because as the commissioner is saying, he's asking about tickets. That to me is an enforcement activity, but we certainly do, and I think we all support to continue to educate people on the importance of wearing a mask to keep yourself, your own family, and the people sitting around you on transit safe. So does that help, Commissioner Olsen? I'm telling you that we will certainly have to look at whatever the province says, but for the go forward for now is that we will continue to educate, and we're not. There's no discussion of removing the mask mandate from transit at this point.
Yeah. Okay. If it might be a good idea, maybe at our next meeting, to invite someone from Ottawa Public Health to sit in, but. Okay.
And if something happens in between meetings, Commissioner, I think Renee, can we undertake to get a memo out to the commission if something happens in between, and to give them perspective from Ottawa Public Health if there's any change to the mandate or anything like that, and then we can take it from there. Okay.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Madam Amilcar. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Next up is Commissioner Kavanagh.
Sorry about that. Thank you very much. And thank you, Madame Amilcar, for the presentation. One of the items that you talked about in terms of improvements was the app that tells you when your bus is coming. And I've had meetings with Mr. Scrimger about this, but I think it's important for people to hear details about what the improvements are, and if there's GPS involved. And for example, one of the concerns I hear about, and I experienced myself, is when you're at the transit station, such as Tunney's Pasture, waiting for the bus, you don't know your particular bus you need to get. You just see all the other buses going by. So, and we need that predictability. I think that's one of the important things about people need is reliability. If they know that it says it's coming in 5 minutes and it comes in 5 minutes, that is really important for people to keep using the bus service. So I want to hear publicly about the improvements and how we're going to make it better so that people know when their bus is coming.
Thank you, Councillor. Chair, I would like Pat to comment on that, because he's very well knowledgeable.
Thank you, Renee. Thanks. Thank you, Chair. At the risk of repeating information I've provided at previous meetings, I'll give a recap of some of the improvements that have been made, some of the improvements that we are working on, and some of the improvements that we are thinking of for the future. The things that are already in place include that we have an improved what's called an API. That's the interface between the data that are held on our server, the open data that come from our server, and how the developers who develop their own apps to use our information pick that information up. That's been, I'm going from memory here, that's been in place for about 1.5 years now. The second major thing that we continuously do that Madame Amilcar mentioned earlier was continuously reviewing and updating the schedule information and the that the system's used to predict travel time from where the bus is right now. So what is the scheduled travel time? What is the normal travel time of the bus along the route from where it is right now to where the person who's asking about the trip is standing? So that information is continuously updated and has been continuously changing as road traffic levels have changed during the pandemic. The third thing that is partly in place and continuing is a massive investment by the city into a generational update in our control and dispatch system. This is the system that knows the location of every bus from GPS, that knows the state of every measurable element on that bus, relays it to the control center, and that's the system that the control center uses to make their decisions about managing the service and keeping the service as on plan as it can be. And it's also the system that is the source for the next bus arrival predictions. That system is now in use. It's been in development for many, many years, from procurement to development to testing. That's taken a very long time. It's a huge system. This is the kind of fundamental operation system that any organization changes probably once every 20 years. It's huge. Right now, we have about half of our buses onto the new system and half are still on the old system. So that because the new system has the most up-to-date prediction techniques and prediction algorithms, the predictions that are coming from the locations of those buses are better today than the ones that come from the old system. We'll continue to move more buses over to the new system over the months to come. But every step of the way is being done very carefully so that we don't run the risk of jumping too quickly into the new system and running the risk of having the service quality on the street suffer. So that continues very methodically and very carefully. And we will, as Renee mentioned earlier, we will report back when that step is achieved. As we look forward to the future, we are considering other methods of publishing the data. We know that there's different formats that the data can be published in, and the developers each have their own preference of how to pick it up. So we're looking at that really closely. We've made some past decisions that we're reflecting on whether we should change those approaches and how we publish the data. There's lots of suggestions, and this is too big a system to turn on a dime. So we're hearing all the suggestions and we're reaching out to our peer agencies, not only across Canada, but all across the world, to see what are the best ways that they publish the data. And then the final thing I'll mention is that we're also looking at how do we bring together all of the information we publish in a way that makes it as easy as possible for customers to receive and understand. Right now we have so many information sources. We have the app, we have our own app, we have the private apps, we have the screens in stations, we have the 560-1000 number that people can phone into, we have the text messaging that people can subscribe to, we have other text-based information that goes out through alerts, that goes out through text messages, that goes out through Twitter, that shows up on the webpage. We are looking at what's the best way to bring that all together and make it easy for customers to understand. That work is ongoing right now. If we've got major recommendations for you and for council for investment in next year, we'll bring it to you. It may also be that we're able to do that within existing budget authority, but we have to plan that carefully. I'll remind what I've said before. We were the first transit system, the first large transit system in North America to have GPS-based real-time information available to all customers for all buses on all routes. We were the first, and because of that, we have and are now phasing out some of the oldest technology, the oldest algorithms, prediction methods, and ways of publishing those data. There's much more that has been learned since we were there as a pioneer, and we're now taking advantage of what everyone else has learned since we broke that path.
I really appreciate it, Pat. I realize that it's huge, but it's incredibly important as we move forward. What we've heard from the conversation so far from everyone is that there's a new think on how buses are going to be used. It isn't commuter 8 o'clock, get on the bus, come home at 5 o'clock or whatever. So people are jumping on the buses at different times for appointments and errands, and that's why they're going to casually go up and, okay, I got to get so-and-so place. It is a rethink on replacing your car with a bus, and so that reliability is important. So I thank you for that, and I really appreciate all the work that's going into it. In terms of that reliability and the fact that we're trying to get people to think of buses beyond the old style commuting, because that's going to be a different beast in the future. We're building apartments without parking near transit stations, but people aren't just going to use the LRT, they're going to use the bus service as well. They're going to do their shopping, living without cars. We're basically, many people will be forced to live without cars because of these new apartments without parking for most of the people there. And how is OC Transpo working with planning on this for the future? Because I always hear from my residents, they just assume people are just going to park in their neighborhoods. They don't believe anyone's going to live without a car. So, but it's beyond, again, commuting. It's about living without a car.
Go ahead,
Renee,
Pat.
if it's okay, I could just say we collaborate with our colleagues in planning on every development across the city, ensuring that they have the best advice that they can pass on, either as advice or suggestions or requirements to developers on how they can best integrate their development with the transit system, and how they can best set up things, simple things like level places for people to wait, sheltered places for people to wait, enough space that we the city can install a bus shelter, making sure that the pedestrian links are as good as possible, making sure that the densest development is closest to the places where we have the most capacity and the highest quality of service, that everything follows the major policy decisions set out in the Transportation Master Plan and in the implementation of it. So we're there with planning in every new development. We rely on them; they rely on us.
Thank you, Pat. My last question is about masks, and it's it's problematic that we're sort of in this limbo of people who feel that we don't need masks anymore, and it's only in certain places, and of course public transit is one that it's supposed to be there. But I'm finding, particularly from seniors, and I have a lot of seniors, I have the highest number of seniors in the city, it's very inhibiting for them to get on buses if they think other people aren't wearing masks. And I hear about this all the time. And I know it's a tough one, but we also used to hear about concern about people not paying their fares or whatever and having to have inspectors. Are we using inspectors to check on masks to make sure people are wearing masks?
Excuse me, Councillor, can you repeat your question? Because I'm not sure if I understood what you exactly.
We have bus inspectors, security to go on buses to check on situations, but are they checking on masks? Because it's very difficult. I understand it's difficult for the driver to enforce wearing of a mask. It puts them in a difficult position if anyone, refuses. They don't want conflict, and that their job is to drive the bus. But I'm asking, are we looking at more inspecting to make sure that people are wearing their masks? Because the reason we put that rule in is for everyone's safety. And I'm hearing from those who are concerned about their safety. And that's one of our biggest demographics that uses the bus is seniors.
Thank you, Councillor. Chair, I have some statistic here. I wanted to make sure that I understood the question. So in March, I had 5,949 customers who has been verified as compliant, and 227 customers were reminded and complied. Officers often carry spare masks that I provided to customers, as I said before, and so it's really special constable who are doing this particular thing. And I remember last year, Chair Hubli asked us to focus during the peak hour, because we used to go out of the peak, and we increase special constables during that peak. And as I said before, we educate, I said reinforce, but educate people, and we give them some mask effectively.
30 seconds left.
Okay, thank you very much. No, I appreciate that. The last question is on e-buses. Did I understand that it's going to take us till 2036 to be for the whole fleet to be changed over? Is that correct?
Consider it was the date, it was 2036 for the all fleet. It's still that. But
Okay.
now for the first step, it's 450 by 2027. But actually, we're waiting for Infrastructure Canada, and we're doing a lot of things to make sure that we jump on it. But we're on it. But actually, we have a little delay because we cannot expend any money because we didn't receive any authorization from Infrastructure Canada. But in parallel, we're doing our the tender, and we planify with Ottawa. We're doing a lot of things, but we cannot expend any penny.
Okay, and the Auditor General made a recommendation as well, not to jump too fast. Is that part of the issue?
No. We welcome those recommendations, and instead of having 74 buses for the next month, we will buy only 26, and after that we will increase those quantity. So there is no issue with the EG. We're working very well together.
Okay, thank you. Merci.
Thank you. Merci.
Thank you, Councillor. I think it's worth pointing out to your last question, there isn't an e-bus available that matches our articulates or our double deckers yet for capacity. And as you know, especially the articulates, they're the workhorse of the fleet. So we're going to, probably not us in this year, but in some point in the future, the Transit Commission will have to take a look at, do they want to wait for an articulated e-bus, or do we want to launch pilots with natural gas or hydrogen, whatever is available at the time that could work an articulated bus, because we can't do away with all our articulates, and yet we're in a climate emergency, so we should be trying to do everything possible. So that'll come up. It's not on this agenda today, but it's certainly something that has been explored for, I'm going to say, the last couple of years anyway, with staff.
Thank you.
Okay.
And I will wait to see how they deal with getting stuck in snow up a hill, which is...
Absolutely. I'm hoping that at some point, Renee will be able to do that as part of her update on the e-bus to let us know how the four of them performed in the snow. Councillor Meehan, I just got to let you know, I need to finish getting the commissioners to their first round of questions. So there's two more right now, and then I'll go to you before we go to the second round, okay? So next up would be Councillor Gower, please.
Thanks, Chair. I was curious about method of payment and if there's any observations or trends that staff can share, for example, on bus pass usage, monthly pass usage. Has that changed at all? Has the percentage of riders using a monthly pass stayed the same or gone down or gone up, or any other information along that lines that you can share?
Mr. Chair, I can say that I don't have that specific information. One thing I can say along those lines is that ridership has been recovering more quickly with customers who pay a discounted fare than with customers who pay full fare. I don't have the information, and I will find out if we do have it about whether the balance has been changing between the different lengths of time that people would buy a pass between, single ride, day pass, and monthly pass.
Okay, yeah, it'd be interesting to see that and any analysis or insight that might provide in terms of ridership or revenue impact going forward this year and beyond. So thank you. That's it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Next up is Councillor Mckinney, please.
Thank you, Chair and staff. Unfortunately, I was unable to come onto the commission meeting at the beginning as another briefing, but I've gone through the presentation, and I'll start by saying I love the new format. I find it very easy to understand, just to look at it, to understand the trending, what that means, and the actual numbers and around ridership. So thank you for that. It is encouraging to see light rail vehicle availability trending in a positive way. I think that and I've been critical of our light rail system when it didn't work. And having said that, I think it's important to also be positive about it when it does work, because having good reliability will and having it put out there that the train is reliable when it is, will help to increase ridership as well, right? It's like telling people, if you, I think as Councillor Kavanagh mentioned earlier, like if our buses are reliable, if we go out and come when they're supposed to, we may not have the frequency we want right now, but if they come when they're supposed to, you'll go back and you'll take a bus again. It's human nature. So thank you for this. I think some encouraging trends, certainly. I just want to mention masking. I think that it is important that we do continue to enforce masking on transit. And Councillor Gower's question led to an answer that it's actually the increase in ridership is mostly from our special passes. So what that would tell you is that the people who are on transit today have little choice. They're not, they're seniors, they're lower incomes, they're people that need to get around, they're students. So it is incredibly important that we do what we can in a contained environment like transit to keep them safe. So as an elected representative, I want to be able to have a say on if and when we remove that the mask mandate on our transit system. Can I ask? I have just a few questions. Ridership in comparison to other municipalities in Ontario around the same size, are our numbers similar? I know it's not apples to apples because of our workforce, but are we trending even in the same way at the same proportion for ridership?
Thank you, Councillor. I would like to thank you very much for your kind words. It's very important for my team and for myself, and merci beaucoup. Pat, do you have those stats for Councillor?
I don't have comparisons across the province so much as across the country and around the world. Our ridership, and we're not unique in this, but our ridership fell lower than many other cities and has been slower to recover than many other cities around the world. We believe that is generally because so many of the people who travel in our city are doing so to and were doing so to and from schools and offices, that we have a smaller fraction of our population who works in industry or service industry, things like that. So we see that our ridership fell further and is later to grow, but we're not unique in this. Our numbers are similar to some other, office and school-based cities across North America for sure.
Okay. Okay, and that could, speak to any type of, when we're looking at fair funding and fair funding models, I think that type of information is important to have as well. On Para, and great job, Para, having the new system for online booking. The one criticism that we heard was that there's still not online, there's still not a capability for same day booking. Is that something that we're moving towards?
1 minute left.
Thank you, Councillor. For the same day, it's not a problem with the tool or something like that. It's the way that we give the service. For sure, when we accept the same day, and if we don't have the capacity, we have to force this capacity. Unfortunately, it will cost very, very high. So that's why we suggest to people to book the routes the day before, and when it's possible, and when they call us to try to book the same day, we need to see if we have this capacity. Okay. Maybe Pat, it's okay, Pat. Do you have something to add? Maybe.
Thanks, Renee. Just to add in a little detail that the work our team does overnight after all the bookings are in for the next day. So if we were booking today for tomorrow, by 5 o'clock this afternoon, all of the bookings are in. What our team does through the evening is prepare the bus schedules for tomorrow to be as tight as possible to meet all of the expectations we have, all the policy direction and customers' expectations of a short trip, the bus arriving early in the window. During the pandemic, we've also been working to keep the number of people on each bus or taxi as low as possible. So they do that scheduling work through the evening so that the next day's work instructions are ready for each bus operator, each minibus operator, and each taxi. When someone calls in the next day, what our team does is look to see if there's a vehicle traveling in the direction the person wants to go that wouldn't add too much travel time to other people's trips, that wouldn't require too many people to be traveling in the same vehicle. And if they can confirm that trip, they will, and they do much of the time. That's our current operating model for same day trip requests, and that we're doing a very good job of it. But it's the primary policy direction from council has been to set up trips the day before and optimize for so that as many people as possible can be accommodated.
Okay, thank you for that. I understand. I understand there's a capacity issue, and that is a budgeting issue, which is what we do. But it is good to understand what the barrier to that is. The new controlled dispatch system, will that enhance the GPS system on buses so that people will be able to go on to their apps to find out when their bus is arriving?
Maybe I can draw a distinction here between the data collection and the data sharing. The GPS data are collected, from GPS satellites, and our system, our old system and our new system, both know at all times where that bus is, as long as we've got a clear view to the sky. The information that's being published, as I was saying earlier in response to a question from Councillor Kavanagh, is continuously getting better, but a big jump comes in the prediction methods and the calculation algorithms that are in our new control and dispatch system that's coming into use, and about half of the buses are moved over onto that. So the GPS, where the bus is accurate. What is the prediction of when it will come to you? The new system uses a more advanced calculation method, but it's based on, you know, the fundamental data of where is the bus right now and how long does it usually take a bus to get from that location to where the customer's asking about.
Okay. And just a last question. Do we have any information yet on the uptake on passes to shelter residents?
Thank you, Councillor. I know that we started, but I don't know how many did we distribute. I can find that and we can come back. Yep. Certainly.
Okay, that'd be great.
It just started this month, I believe.
Yes,
Correct?
I thought it was March, but I
think so.
I just hope that everybody has one who is living in a shelter and able to get around the city. So yeah, it's just information that I would like. If you want to send that out, share it with me. I can share it with others. I can share it with everyone. That's all my questions. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I'll just add in one of the things that they were available from partway through March, but because many of those customers were traveling to or from downtown, and there were free fares through much of March on the downtown bus routes and on the train, there may have been a lower take up on those passes for shelter residents in March than there would be in future months coming up. We'll get the April data and share it in future.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. I just want to go back to your question about the same day service and just ask Pat to clarify here. Because there was a recent story in a paper that probably most of the commissioners saw where one of the users were saying that they couldn't stay out past midnight. But part of our budgeting process that Councillor Mckinney alluded to, we subsidize a number of passes for our users for accessible cabs, which are available well past midnight and on same day bookings. Is that not correct? And we haven't exhausted that the supply yet this year, have we?
Mr. Chair, that's correct. We do, following Council's a long-standing direction to have taxi vouchers, taxi coupons available. In recent years, Council increased the subsidy level for those. Those are now a 55% discount from the meter rate of a taxi. Any Paratranspo customer can buy taxi vouchers. We supply them to them. The current procedure is you get $40 worth of taxi coupons for $18, and the customers are allowed to purchase up to 8 of those booklets per month. So they get a booklet from us, and they use it to pay the taxi driver. The taxi driver puts that back through their dispatch company, and we pay the full amount from the city budget. So that's another option that's available for people. It may appeal to some. It may have restrictions. Even a discounted taxi fare isn't affordable to everybody, and certainly could have a higher cost to the traveler than a Paratranspo fare. And in addition, there are certainly people who, by the nature of their disability or the type of mobility device that they use, they might find that an accessible cab is not for them. But it is another choice that's available to everybody if it works for them.
Thank you for that answer. So next up is Councillor Tierney, and then we will go to Councillor Meehan.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I concur with a lot of the comments made. I love the new presentation format, especially the use of graphics. It really illustrates things, and I appreciate it because I can share that with my community, and I see a lot of colleagues are doing that today. Real quick on the, I'm very pleased to see the evolution of tracking buses and all that great stuff. And this might be for Pat, actually. Pat, in our open data segments, the live data we're providing, we provide parameters and different information like long bus, a short bus, bike rack. Will we be adding, or is it already part of, are we adding electric bus? Because I think that's kind of cool and groovy. And if I saw where electric buses were rolling around, if I knew the next bus was electric, I might just hang out and take it just to try it out. Is that something that you're looking at right now?
I'm afraid I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know whether it's data which are linked in our systems. I can find out, and Councillor, I can perhaps just send you an email on that.
That'd be terrific. I think it's one of those things that, you know, if we want to promote people, at least testing them, trying them out and seeing what they're all about. If it's a simple change to add that extra parameter in, like I said, we have long bus, short bus, bike rack. I wouldn't see it being too technical, but it would be something fun to have. But anyway, thank you very much, Pat, and look forward to your email. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. So next up is, thank you for waiting, Councillor Meehan.
Oh, well, thank you very much, Chair, and good morning to my colleagues. Interesting conversations and interesting information. Just a couple of things that I would like to follow up on here today. And I know, I mean, throughout history, we know that there's always a reason or a catalyst for change. And I think COVID certainly is, you know, the main reason that we are seeing the necessitating changes to our transit system in the city. And we weren't ready for it. Nobody was. But I think that I just want to reiterate something that Councillor Brockington said, is that data, we are a data-driven society right now, and data, accurate data, especially when it comes to planning the changes for OC Transpo, is going to be absolutely essential. So I'm a bit distressed to find out that we don't know where the increased ridership is coming from, if it is in fact federal public servants returning to the office or university students. I think that we have to figure out a way to collect this data now. We have to know if people are coming in from the suburbs, for what reasons. We need to know who's on those buses, where they're going. And also we need to do, I think we need to do a fulsome survey of our suburbs to figure out where people want that bus. How we are going to see more people continue to work from home, and we are going to see people not want to take their cars, and we're making it impossible for people to have cars out here. So we have to figure out where the buses are going to be desired. So I would just like to say, I would love to see a system where we are doing data collection. We're on the buses, we hire summer students, and we collect the data. Where did you get on? Where are you going? Why? I think this is going to be essential for all our decision making. And we should do a dedicated team in all our suburbs to figure out, do you take the bus? Why not? Where do you need to go? So I just like to put that out there, because the most accurate data that we have is going to dictate how our system is going to run in the future. I missed the beginning of the meeting. I apologize for that. I did see that there was a collection of complaints from Paratranspo. Do we have a number for the number of complaints for our regular bus service? Does anyone know that?
Thank you, Councillor. I don't have actually on my end, but maybe Pat got it, but there is something, this is something that we can provide for sure as KPIs too.
Please, yeah, we need that, because I could tell you anecdotally out here and from the calls to my office, reliability has been terrible. Buses, I'm told buses don't show up, buses are late, and it's turning people off. So we have to increase our reliability. People have to know that their bus is coming, or they're not going to stand in the corner. People don't have the time to do that. So we have to figure out, I don't know, why, can you just tell me anecdotally why? Like, we've got empty buses running around out here still, double-decker buses, there's one or two people on them. Why would they be late? What's the holdup? Is it the scheduling? Do you have an indication of why that's happening still?
Thank you, Councillor. Chair, there is a multiple things that could happen. We can have maybe the first bus before was didn't show up because we have an issue with it. Is it the traffic? There's a lot of things that we have we can explain. I have a data that I follow with my team on a weekly basis to make sure that why we don't achieve our availability of buses, and for sure those data can explain why the bus is late sometimes, not every time. But so I can, this is something, Councillor Mian, that I can provide here at the Transit Commission, or I can share it by email too for 1 week. And if we need to go through for the other weeks, there was no problem for me to do it.
I'd appreciate that, because it's really hard as a councillor to promote people taking the bus, you know, to get out of taking their car because gas is so expensive these days, and to be just told the bus doesn't come. That's hard to hear. So we've got to step up and improve the bus reliability if we're going to encourage more people to take the bus. So I would ask that we get information on why the bus isn't showing up and actually do something to improve that. So also, community busing is something that I think we're going to have to transition to, because people are working from home and they're going to want to get to their grocery store or their doctor's appointment or the dentist or pick up their kids at school. We have to do a survey. We have to figure out where people want to go. And I don't think it should be just left up to the councillor's office to do that. So I'd like to suggest that that's something that we tackle at OC Transpo. Going to, actually, no, one before I go to e-buses, I've been told that OC Transpo is in discussions with some of the on-demand transit services. There are companies out there that provide this service, and they have come to the city and offered their expertise. I'm wondering where we are in terms of that. Are we in discussions with any company at all at this point?
45 seconds left.
Thank you, Councillor. Chair, effectively, I proposed, I think it was during the last Transit Commission, we will come with a presentation to do, to give a full picture of what is on demand, where we are, what do we need to be able to put it in place here, et cetera, et cetera. Will come very, very soon.
Okay, so you'll need data though, in order to understand what they can do. We need that data. Here I am pushing data. I hated data collection when I was in school. One other question, when it comes to the e-buses, I know that you're currently in talks or negotiations on the financial model. I'm wondering if the Auditor General is being included in those talks, because her expertise is essential in this.
Thank you, Councillor. Chair.
Bank, yeah, with the Infrastructure Bank and everybody.
Yeah, the Auditor General actually is not supervising, but will do some verification, and we're working very closely. But for sure, we have to go, and they will come after. But they're constantly asked for questions, and they are everywhere. I can tell you, because my team told me, and it's okay. We welcome them, and we're working very well with them.
Okay, so when we come up to an agreement, will she get a chance to review that financial negotiation?
Yes.
Okay, I love that. There was one small little thing I forgot, but I'll probably remember it when I sign off. I can't think of it. Anyway, I appreciate the information, and I would love to see us come back. I can provide a direction to OC Transpo staff that we do like serious data collection on all aspects of what's happening out there, so that we can have informed decisions going ahead. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. So now we're back to the second round of questions. Commissioner Wright-Gilbert, please.
Thank you. Sorry, I thought that Councillor Brockington was first. Riley, did you want to go first? You're good. Okay. Thank you. So I wanted to say, and that's why I came around for a second round, is that the Myparatranspo online booking site is a real triumph. It's a triumph for not only OC Transpo staff, but I think really for Paratranspo users who've been really pushing and advocating hard for this service to be available to them. I hope as we move forward, we can move forward with same-day bookings and things that'll really make Paratranspo use equal to that of regular OC Transpo use. So I just want to say that I was really impressed with the online booking site, the demonstration that Mr. Scrimger gave for us. My question is, have you received any feedback from customers who've just started using the site? Have you received positive or negative? Have you received any feedback?
Thank you, Commissioner. Chair, as you know, we had big pilot on that. So we work with those those people who were on the who tried it, and we improved the system before to launch it. Pat, I know that we launched to all of our customers since April 14. I don't know if you received any comments from them. I'll let you go, but I know it's very well received in general.
Yes, that's correct. I'm not aware of any customer feedback specifically on this topic since we went live last Thursday.
Okay, maybe for the next meeting, if you can maybe just provide us a little bit of an overview of the feedback. That positive for sure, negative if there's any, but I am really impressed by the site. It seems as though you've thought of everything, and I want to just personally thank those who participated in the pilot program, those who have advocated for this and pushed for this for years, and thank OC Transpo staff for making it happen. I mean, I know we only just launched this, but maybe I won't ask this question, but just make a request that at the next meeting, could we also receive an update on the uptake, like the site, the bookings made through the online system? If that's something you could also provide that data to us as well, because I'd like to see sort of in comparison to the phone systems, because I saw that the phone systems is a 3-minute wait time, which is definitely improved. So kudos on that. I think we definitely need to get that number lower. My hope would be down to the industry standard of 80-20. And so that 80% of our calls are answered within 20 seconds. That is the industry standard for call centers. But next time around, if we could look at the uptake of the online booking system in comparison to the number of phone calls to see if it's reduced our phone or the burden on our phone system. I think that'd be a really interesting and useful stat to see. You talked about an origin destination survey, and I apologize if I've missed this. How is the data being collected for the origin destination survey? I believe that's with respect to regular bus service.
Thank you, Commissioner. Chair, normally the origin destination survey is doing by my colleague Steve Willis' team and his team, and normally it's by survey for sure. And it's a big collection. It's a lot of data, so we will work with him for sure to try to have some info to be applied with OC Transpo.
Okay, but my specific question was, how is the data being collected?
It's by surveys, by doing surveys.
So, okay, perhaps I'm not being clear in my question. When you say you're doing a survey, there's a lot of ways, there's not a methodology in order to do surveys. So for example, you can have a person with a clipboard standing at the platform asking people, hey, where are you going today? Where did you start? You can ask people via email. You can ask them on Twitter and do a Twitter survey. You can do a random sampling. My question is, how are we actually asking people? So we're using a survey, but how are we actually asking people?
Pat, do you have this particular detail?
Mr. Chair, I don't. The surveys are carried out by the Transportation Planning Branch, which is not in Transit Services Department anymore. We're a user of those data. I'm checking with my team right now online to see if they know more about the survey technique. I can say what it has been in the past. I just don't know if this year it's modified for the the modern world. But in the past, it's been a phone call out to people selected randomly, asking them how they traveled, asking them then a great number of details about what they did yesterday, what they how they traveled, where they traveled from, where they traveled to. I know that every time they do the survey, they check with the survey industry and with the transportation professionals from all across the continent about what's the best way to do the survey. I've got the answer here back that yes, it's a phone survey, as it has been in the past. But if the commissioner wants more information, we can certainly
that's fine.
hook her up with our colleagues in transportation. Oh, random digit dial to make sure that we're getting cell phone numbers. It's not just numbers listed. We want to make sure we're not just biasing in favor of landlines.
That's fine. That's excellent. Thank you very much. And your staff should be commended for their very quick responses. That's, I guess, when the boss texts, you get a response. So just looping back around when we're talking about the call center for Para, is there, in addition to obviously the MyPara online, which again is awesome, is there anything being actively done to continue to reduce the phone wait time from 3 minutes down to the industry standard?
Thank you, Commissioner. Chair, I can share my experience and I can say that 3 minutes is very, very good. For sure, everything is possible, but we have to pay more for sure. But 3 minutes is very, very good data, good TPIs.
I appreciate that. However, I asked if anything was actively being done to reduce the 3 minute wait time.
Commissioner, I think that you said it before with the online booking, probably less people will call, so probably, and we will monitoring that data. And otherwise, we have to increase the number of people, and to do so, we need more money to do it.
Okay, so perhaps that's something that you'll take into account when presenting the next Transit Commission with a budget for the following year. And I will be interested to see the data next month in terms of wait times for Paratranspo call center, in terms of when the call is answered, and the uptake on the online booking. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Those are my questions.
Thank you, Commissioner. Next up is Commissioner Brockington, and Vice Chair Kluge. Could I ask you to take over for a couple of minutes, please?
Thank you, Chair and Vice Chair. Just I want to follow up on a quick question from from Commissioner Olsen, and he asked about the masks. Madame Amical, can you just clarify if the provincial government rescinds this requirement, but the intent is to continue in Ottawa? Does the decision get made by Dr. Etches, yourself, the general manager of OC Transpo, or does the decision to extend the mask mandate need to come back to the commission? Who in Ottawa makes the final decision?
Thank you, Councillor. My understanding was in June 2020, the Transit Commission took this decision to oblige the mask. So with that, we can continue to follow this decision, even if the provincial decided to lift the mask. As Commissioner Olsen asked, I think, and Chair Ubley said, probably we should come back here at this transit. So I will wait for the decision from the provincial, and if we need to do something else, we will present it for you for sure at the next Transit Commission. That it was my understanding.
Fair enough. Thank you for that clarification. I appreciate that. My first set of questions talked about sort of the macro data that OC Transpo may have available at its fingertips. And one thing I wanted to ask is something we looked at, I think at the beginning of the pandemic, and that was other transportation mode data sets, including road volumes and taxi and or Uber volumes of ridership. Do you have that data available? Like, can you look at road volume before COVID and now to see whether it's comparable, whether travel by road is higher versus OC Transpo? Because again, that might be able to tell stories that we're not aware of. Do you have that data?
Consider the answer is no, but I will try to get it for sure.
Okay, no, I appreciate that. Thank you. But my last question, Vice Chair, is regarding what we have referred to in the past as the animation of LRT stations. You touched upon advertising, which will be in our LRT trains at some point. Happy Goat is a coffee company that has started in, I think, a handful of our LRT stations, which is good to see. This is before you took over as GM, talk about employing or permitting buskers or licensed entertainers and other projects to help animate and add some life into our transit stations, which, you know, concrete, somewhat dull. We need a little bit of extra life and animation in our stations. Do you have any information on any progress in this regard?
Consider, I don't specifically. I will switch to Pat to see if he can provide some info. The only thing that I can say before to be able to do so, we need people, because as let's take the Happy Goat, for sure that they can open a coffee shop if they don't have any customers to buy coffee. And I experimented this experience here since we reopened the cafeteria here, and I know that they struggle a lot. So we need to bring back people first, and after that, I think those kind of initiatives will be very welcome. Pat, can you add comments, please?
A little bit, thank you. So on Vice Chair, on Happy Goat, they built and opened so let me start at the beginning. Of the 13 stations on O Train Line 1, 4 of them had spaces built into them for a potential retail outlet. As you know, Happy Goat was a successful competitor in that leasing process, and they began construction at all 4 locations. And then the pandemic came along and kicked their feet out of them, I'd say financially, out from under them. They have opened 2 locations, which have been open fairly continuously since they were built. But again, they shut them down for periods during the depths of the pandemic and also during the demonstrations downtown. They've resumed construction on the other 2 locations, which will open, as our plan to open over the next couple of months. That's at Herdman and Tunney's Pasture, in addition to the ones at Rideau and Blair. And we hope for the best for their business, and that they will be able to complete that work and bring that additional amenity to our customers. As far as the busker program goes, the busker program is fully developed and has been ready to roll for about 2 years now. Because of the pandemic, I'd say there was multiple influences. One, early on, we needed to know a lot more than we knew at the time, and we now know more about things like singing in enclosed spaces and musical instruments. And now we need to be sure that that we apply all the proper public health guidelines on how to manage that busking. But more fundamentally, as Renee said, we need to have enough customers so that the buskers can make some money while they're there. This is how they make their living. They'll come in, they'll get their license from the city, but they need to be able to make some money. So they need some traffic to be going through those stations. That's happening now. We will re-engage with our colleagues in the other city departments like Recreation, Culture, and Facility Services, and OPH, to make sure that we've got all the right things in place to know whether there's a market for it and there's a safe way of doing it this year, or whether unfortunately we'd have to wait for another year. But we're ready to go from the operational side.
That's excellent. Thank you for that update. At Rideau Station, there are showcases as you're walking up that long ramp to get to the escalators. There are showcases on the right that are lit up, and I noticed the content changes, which is great. Great way to get people's attention. Are there possibilities in other stations to hang things on the wall? I don't know whether it would be copies of art or just anything to help. Again, I'm using the word animate, beautify stations. The stations are concrete. I realize people are trying to get to the platform. They don't maybe want to spend a lot of time, but I think this can be very inexpensive. And if we're going to wait to bring in a busker program because we want to wait until we have sort of a critical mass of riders to make that work. Whether there are some very inexpensive ways to help, like I said, beautify or animate. So I don't expect an answer now, but I just want to flag that having increased my own travels on the LRT, particularly with my kids on weekends, it's one thing that we still talk about is the public art, the art that exists, very nice. I think that helps contribute to a better experience, but I think there are some additional ways we can help improve the overall experience. So that's it from me, Mr. Vice Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brockington. Still on the second round, Councillor Kavanagh, s'il vous plaît.
Merci. Thank you. I'm following up from Councillor Gower's questions about methods of payment and in the percentage of users right now. That was very interesting. And I just want to know, in terms of the Community Pass and Equipass, if we know what percentage that is. And I realize this is a question that maybe you can't ask today, but it would be useful to know is potentially how many people would qualify for community passes and Equipasses, and how can we offer this to people who could really use these passes and make use of them.
Thank you, Councillor. Maybe I can just say from the last council, we had a big motion regarding how we can offer fair transit. All of those things will be included in this study to make sure that how we can help people, how we can increase the ridership, how we can attract people, etc., etc. So it will be a big study, but I think we will include every single thing on that. If you can be just a little bit patient, we will come with something for sure.
Okay, I hope you're going to look at applications, because I just looked on the website, and to apply for Equipass and Community Pass, you have to mail things in, which, you know, like I just did my tax return and I can just push a button for something as, you know, complicated and requiring documents as that. And yet for Equipass and Community Pass, people have to photocopy and send things in by snail mail. And I'm kind of surprised in this day and age, particularly when I'm on the board for Ottawa Community Housing, even their systems for many things are computer or internet oriented in terms of the amount of people who have access to internet has gone up. I think maybe there was a presumption that people who are low income had no access, but that's not the case as much anymore, because during the pandemic, everyone had to get access. And of course, that's an equitable issue right there. But is there some way we can make that an easier process through the application process to encourage people to apply for passes that would help them?
Renee, can I jump in with a partial answer to that?
Sure.
Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, whoever's on, oh, Mr. Chair, there you are. We're ready to help customers in almost any way. We take the view of no wrong door. If someone wants to come to our customer service center and speak to us that way, we'll do it that way. If someone wants to get us on the phone, we'll do it that way. If someone wants to mail in information, if someone wants to email information, if someone wants to fax information, it's the customer's choice. One of the things that we're exploring currently with another organization is actually going and holding sort of application information sessions and clinics where we'd be at that organization's location, sitting down at a table on such and such a day every month or every week or when it's announced, so that we can just work through with customers what they will need to do so that we can apply the eligibility rules that that council has given us. So we're ready to work anyway with any customer to get them the type of registration they need for the fare discount that works best for them.
Thank you. I'm on the board for Ottawa Community Housing, and I've asked them to reach out to OC Transpo as well to work so that residents in Ottawa Community Housing could, you know, that there be some sort of way for them to apply quicker, you know, with because we already know if they've been income tested, they're in Ottawa Community Housing for those reasons, and so there's a pretty good chance that they're going to qualify. So
oh, that's exactly right. I didn't want to name the organization. You have, we've been in discussions with them, and we are going to work with them to do everything we can.
Okay, I appreciate it, and thank you, because I've been encouraging that. I'm going to throw out a question that in relation to a concern that came up, and that was to do with ordering a taxi through Paratranspo for accessibility, and that the person couldn't book it the day before, and for some reason that changed. I'm not sure if I quite understand why, but they couldn't book it the day before, and it's related to Paratranspo. Are you aware of these issues? I can pass on the case if there's, but I want to make sure that there's not been a glitch here. We're very happy about the Myparatranspo and the success already, but how do taxis fit in?
45 seconds left.
So, Mr. Chair, when somebody books a Paratranspo trip, they can make a request to us, but in most cases, we do not ask them what type of vehicle they need for their trip. So we'll send the trip, the vehicle that's in the best location for them. It could be a taxi under contract to the city. It could be a minibus. If someone wants an accessible cab in particular, they would talk to our agent about that. So people don't normally call us trying to book a taxi. They call us to book a trip, and we send the right type of vehicle for them. If you've, Councillor, if you've got specifics with someone who had some trouble, we'd be happy to follow up on that. We've probably followed up on it already with the customer, but we can bring you into the loop as well if you'd like to get in touch with me
Okay.
directly
Thank
after
you.
this.
Okay, thank you. I think it's a bylaw issue, actually. I've just had it pointed out that it might be bylaw related.
If it's about booking a taxi through the taxi companies, then the bylaw would know more about it than we would.
Yeah, it's for people who have accessibility issues. Okay, thank you, and appreciate all the efforts that are being made on the passes. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. So that
Councillor
concludes the update on the Confederation line, Paratranspo and bus service. So moving on to item number 2, which is the Transit Commission public member access to confidential information. There's no presentation, there's no delegations. Is there any questions of staff on this issue? And just so you know, we have David White, the city solicitor, is available to answer your questions. Go ahead, Commissioner Wright-Gilbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm actually the one who raised this item to this agenda because I have some concerns with the application of the interpretation of Mr. White's response. So my original inquiry was twofold. One was with respect to a meeting that was held late last year of FEDCO, where the Transit Commission meeting was canceled and all Transit Commission related agenda items got folded into the FEDCO meeting and actually into a FEDCO in-camera meeting. I take very little issue with Mr. White's response with respect to the in-camera briefings at FEDCO. Though I will say that if information is being shared in a FEDCO in-camera briefing, that is information that could help citizen commissioners of this Transit Commission make decisions going forward, which is our job to provide direction to and oversight of public transit, then I would make the argument that we should be privy to that information. However, the reason why I raised this to this agenda is because the response that I received, that I've read several times from Mr. White, is that it centers on the in-camera briefings at FEDCO, but does not actually respond to the point number 2 that I made, that citizen transit commissioners are being barred, physically barred from seeing information, confidential information that councillors are able to see. And the example that I cited in my inquiry and that I will use in this discussion is RTG's return to service plan. So it should be noted, as we all know, but just for the public members who are watching today, that at the beginning of our term, myself and the other 3 citizen members, who I'm not speaking on behalf of in my comments today, I'm doing this myself, but I imagine some of them might share my concerns. We're required to sign an oath of office and a comprehensive non-disclosure agreement under the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. We signed those documents on February 6th of 2019. So even if private information is shared with us during an in-camera briefing or during Transit Commission, or documents that are not necessarily available for public disclosure, we are barred from actually sharing that private information with the public because of our oath of office and non-disclosure agreement. When I was referring specifically to the RTG's return to service plan, so while I understand in Mr. White's response, he says, quote, limiting the disclosure of information and or documentation, the release of which might prejudice the city's legal or contractual position and interests to only those persons absolutely necessary, ensures that the city can confidently assert that these are confidential and or privileged communications, in brackets, solicitor-client privilege, litigation privilege, or otherwise, close brackets, and not subject to broader disclosure. I take that point. However, RTG's return to service plan falls squarely within the mandate of the Transit Commission, which is providing overall guidance and direction to the Transportation Services Department on all issues relating to the operation of public transit. And so my question, Mr. White, directly to you is, what is the material difference between councillors and citizen commissioners, insofar that citizen commissioners are barred from seeing documents that relate to their position on Transit Commission, i.e. the RTG's return to service plan, that councillors are allowed to see? What is the material difference between the 2?
May, Mr. Chair. And with respect to the characterization of the return to service plan as being within the mandate of the Transit Commission, frankly, I believe council's position on that has been, I mean, council CIL, not SEL, has been that those are matters that fall within the mandate of the Finance and Economic Development Committee, as that split mandate was established originally back in 2011. So with respect to the question of what is the essential difference, and with respect to the member, the commissioner, members of council have responsibilities, have statutory responsibilities under the Municipal Act with respect to accountability, with respect to transparency, with respect to the representation of residents that are not shared, to put it simply, with the citizen members of the Transit Commission. The citizen members of the Transit Commission, yes, are bound to confidentiality with respect to items that come to their attention in the context of the work that they do as part of the Transit Commission, and for matters that fall within the mandate of the Transit Commission. So an example of that would be transit collective bargaining mandates are something that council has determined fall within the consideration and the recommendation of the Transit Commission. And those are obviously confidential matters, and the public members of the commission are entitled to that information, are privy to the labor relations and the legal advice that is given in the context of the work that the commission does to direct staff with respect to bargaining. But that does not extend to matters that are outside of the mandate as set by council of the Transit Commission.
So what you're saying, Mr. White, is that you sort of made 2 points. The first point is that you are maintaining that RTG's return to service plan, after we have had 2 derailments, and that the return to service plan does not fall within the mandate of the Transit Commission, even though service on transit is squarely within the mandate of the Transit Commission. So you were maintaining that that actually falls within FEDCO's. The service, the return to service plan falls within the mandate of FEDCO, not Transit Commission. That's your position?
Chair, the return to service plan has been determined to be essentially a contractual matter that is within the mandate of FEDCO. The allocation of responsibility as between FEDCO and the Transit Commission is in essence, and this is a probably gross oversimplification, that FEDCO is responsible for the system of essentially providing the system, the construction, the implementation of it. Once the system is operational and those elements are kind of folded into, become part of the overall transit operations, then it falls to the Transit Commission with respect to the determination of those items that are, for example, within its mandate, schedules, customer service, the kinds of things that the Commission has been talking about this morning.
So I understand all that, but I thank you for the clarification, Mr. White, for those watching. However, who makes the determination that the return to service plan, where they're talking about how we are going to return to regular safe service, who made the determination that that is a contractual issue only and not something that falls within the mandate of the Transit Commission?
2 seconds left.
If I may, Chair, these are determinations made ultimately by council, presumably with the advice of staff and based on the determinations that have been made since 2011 with respect to the allocation of responsibility between the Transit Commission and FEDCO and ultimately City Council.
Okay. I'm going to submit to you that actually the determination, as in your response, it was actually made by, quote, the head of an institution to protect from disclosure a record that reveals the substance of deliberations of a meeting, et cetera, et cetera. Was the determination to not allow citizen transit commissioners to see a document that has to do with the service of the LRT, returning it to the service? Was that determination made by or influenced by Mayor Watson?
Chair, the reference to the head of the institution, and the commissioner is quoting a reference to the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. Those responsibilities actually reside with the city clerk under a delegation that was made, testing my memory in that regard, many years ago. And so for the purposes of the administration or the release of documents to the public, that is ultimately done through the auspices of the clerk's office.
Okay, with my final moments of this round, I'm going to say this. You made reference in your previous comments just earlier that the material difference between citizen commissioners and councillors is that councillors are essentially elected, that if they make bad decisions, they are accountable to the public. I'm going to posit this. Being a politician, no offense to my colleagues, being a politician does not automatically make you more trustworthy than someone like myself who is accountable to those who absolutely will call me out if I make a mistake, if I do something that they see as wrong. I'm also accountable because I hold a position in the federal government. I have secret clearance. I'm not sure that we can say that about many of the councillors, again, not trying to insult my colleagues. If I do anything in this role as a transit commissioner that is seen to be controversial, or I've broken the rules, I've broken my non-disclosure agreement, you can absolutely be sure that it affects my career in the federal public service. And you and I can have a private discussion about that because it has happened. So what I'm saying is, just because councillors are elected does not automatically make them more accountable or more trustworthy. I will say this, our role as transit commissioners, as citizen commissioners, is the exact same as our council colleagues, the exact same. The difference is that we do this work with no staff, with no budget, with no office. We do all of our work on our own. We are expected to make the same decisions, do the same research, and provide the same advice as our council colleagues. However, we are now being told that we are not equal to our council colleagues and are not as trustworthy as our council colleagues. Whether you frame it that way or not, that is exactly how it's coming across. It is insulting. And honestly, I don't even know why we have citizen commissioners if we are not able to access the same information as our council colleagues when trying to make decisions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. You raised some very good points that I think we have to look at. Next up is Councillor Fleury, please.
Thank you, Chair. And my questions are a little more macro in governance perspective. And David, I don't know if it's you or if it's the city clerk. We're entering kind of the last quarter of this council, and we always advise on governance and things to consider. With the current inquiry and responses, would you take as a direction the ability to look at future structures specifically for this transit conversion to LRT and some of the different committee responsibility and some of the responsibilities and duties of citizen commissioners as it relates to the proper governance functioning and some of the elements that were raised in terms of access to information and sharing information and signing non-disclosure. So would that be possible for you to, you or the clerk, to add to the review for next council's governance considerations?
Chair, as the member indicates, that is a role undertaken by the city clerk. In keeping with kind of past practice in that regard, there is a period of consultation with all members of council in terms of what proposals they might make for an incoming council. As you know, governance is done at the end of term, and again with a view of making recommendations for the next council, and midterm with respect to those kinds of small tweaks that might make the business of committees and councils a little bit better. So I think if there is to be a direction, I would suggest to be to the clerk. He's probably not listening, so I'm safe to make that commitment. But it may also be something that yourself and other members raise in the context of their consultations with the clerk during that governance exercise.
Yeah, no, I see Caitlin online. I wonder if I will speak openly to say when the clerk sits with me, I speak as a member of council and areas I see we could improve. I think in the spirit of broader governance as raised by the citizens member, I think that a direction under this format might be a little more appropriate. And I wonder if that could be given as a direction.
Mr. Chair, if I might volunteer, the structure and composition of the standing committees is already, and Transit Commission is already a matter that will be reviewed as part of governance, but certainly we could take away as direction to ensure that the composition of the Transit Commission specifically is part of that review and that all members are consulted on that point.
Okay, yeah, that would suffice for me. Thank you, Caitlin, and thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Commissioner Wright-Gilbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to sort of leave my colleagues and as well as staff at OC Transpo and city staff with sort of one last thought, which is we're trying to rebuild our ridership. We've lost ridership as a result of the pandemic. We've lost ridership as a result of a loss in public trust. We had 2 derailments after 2 years of, let's just say it, subpar service. Trains and square wheels and brakes and all these, and the doors and the catenary. I mean, the list goes on and on. We have lost the public's trust in our transit system. We need to get that trust back to build our transit ridership back up. Because if the public doesn't trust that you're going to keep them safe on these trains and on the buses, then you're never going to get them back. And the reason why I'm saying this is one of the best ways to get the public back and to get public trust is to shine some sunlight in there and get some transparency. But when public members, citizen members of this commission, there are 4 of us, are not able to access the same information that the council members are able to see, something as, quite honest, benign as the return to service plan of RTG, or RTM. Why can't we know what their original plan was? They're our maintenance contractor. We should know, are they up to the job? What was wrong with the original plan? Were there changes? We should know these things so that we can provide direction and make decisions. But when you bar 4 members of a commission from seeing documents that they need to see, that I argue fall directly within the mandate of the Transit Commission, you are doing absolutely nothing to increase transparency and trust. You are doing the exact opposite. I view myself as a citizen member of this commission. I represent the public. I represent our ridership. I bring their concerns to this table. Am I an elected official? No. However, I sat in a room with yourself, Chair Hubley, and others, multiple councillors, including a representative from the mayor's office, and interviewed for this position for over half an hour, submitted my CV, submitted my cover letter. I was chosen for this position by a group of people. Not as large a group of people as perhaps councillors, obviously as councillors on this commission. However, I was chosen to be on this commission. I represent the public. And if you are telling me as a member of this commission who signed a non-disclosure agreement, who takes that very seriously, that I cannot see documents that my council colleagues can see, then what are you saying to the public about transparency? If we do not have transparency with this system and with this P3, then there is no public trust and we will never get our ridership back. That is what I'd like to say. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Olsen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say that, as Caitlin mentioned, if this is actually going to be addressed, perhaps it is worthwhile talking with or interviewing the 4 public members of the commission, just to see the perspectives that we all have. I can agree with some of what my colleague says. I do not agree with it all. I do see that there should be some distinction. There is some distinction between councillors and citizen commissioners. So it might be worthwhile to, as I say, to get our perspectives. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Okay, so is this response to the inquiry received? Received?
Received.
Thank you. Okay, so next up is a motion, number 3, the Paratranspo service updates and performance indicator data. There's no presentation, there's no delegations. We will have, of course, questions to staff, but first, Councillor Brockington, would you like to introduce your motion?
Thank you, Chair. In the interest of time, do my colleagues want me to introduce it, or are we prepared just to vote?
Are we ready to vote? Okay, let's do
Carrie.
we want to. Yeah. Okay, is the motion carried?
Carried.
Okay, everybody's comfortable with that, so it's carried. Thank you very much, Councillor Brockington. The no in camera items, is there any notice of motions? Okay, seeing none. Any inquiries? Okay, no inquiries. Under other business, I do have a motion for free transit for displaced Ukrainians coming to Ottawa. And I'm going to ask for the will of the commission if it would be possible to add this item to the agenda today so we could get this moving. I believe the motion has been circulated to everybody. While we don't need a seconder at the commission, if this carries here and goes up to council, Councillor Gower has agreed to be the seconder, and I appreciate your help. The Ukrainian Association is based in Stittsville, and they're the ones that approached us to see if we could do something for these folks. So is it the will of council that, or the will of the commission that we discuss this motion today?
Yes.
Yes.
Carried.
Thank you. Okay, so let me just read it out here to everybody, if I may. Just give me a second. I want to say in advance of the motion that we're all well aware of what Russia is doing to its neighbor in Ukraine. Well, it's hard to imagine, what is hard to imagine is the daily bombardment of neighborhoods that look just like our own communities. The targeting of hospitals and children are too hard for many of us to understand why. That kind of evil has created a need for people to try and get their families to safety, and often without the male members of the family. I certainly pray that my children and grandchildren will never experience that kind of horrific evil in Canada, nor will your families. Some of the survivors are coming to Ottawa, and we all need to welcome and help them however possible. Today, I'm asking for your support for a motion from myself and Councillor Gower that I'll introduce now. Okay. Whereas on February 24th, 2022, Russia invaded Ukraine, triggering Europe's largest refugee crisis since World War II. Whereas a quarter of the Ukrainian population has been displaced, with many people having fled to Ottawa. Whereas for these displaced families and individuals to be fully welcome in the community, they will need to go through a series of steps, including paperwork, assessments, job searches, language training, seeking medical assistance, finding housing, all of which could be made easier using the OC Transpo system. Whereas it is expected that these families and individuals will not receive any employment income or other support until the above steps are completed. Therefore, be it resolved that the Transit Commission recommend Council approve offering a transit pass valid for 6 months of unlimited travel on OC Transpo for these displaced families and individuals coming to Ottawa from Ukraine, and that these passes be provided at no charge to the Community and Social Services Department and to the agencies providing refugee services, so that they may distribute them to those of their clients who are not receiving transportation funding from other levels of government. Be it further resolved that staff include a referral in the 2022 to 2026 term of council governance review, that council consider in the new term of council whether there should be a consistent ongoing approach to support all refugees coming to Ottawa by providing no charge transit service. Okay, questions? Councillor Kavanagh, please.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the motion. And I think it was important that you added the part about all refugees, because I'd like to know if we're going to look at setting policies for that going forward, so that we don't lose that, because I think it would be a great help to those fleeing from war-torn countries. So can that be considered for future policy for going forward?
The motion?
In terms of for all refugees, how will that
well,
be?
it's part of the
Okay.
motion that we're going to vote on. So yes, it would be considered if the motion carries.
Okay, all right.
And we're referring it to the next term of council as part of the governance piece in this motion.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Is that it, Councillor? Okay, thank you. Councillor Mckinney, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the motion. I think it is important that we support refugees coming into the city, certainly who have no ability to provide transportation for themselves or families. But we do have refugees from other countries arriving today. They're here. They've come also from war-torn countries. So I would like to make an amendment that passes be provided for all refugees who are entering the city and are here in the city as refugees today, who are facing the same circumstances. I wonder if you would take that as a friendly amendment.
Can I ask, Councillor, if we hold off on the friendly amendment till the motion goes to council? Because I'd like to get a sense of the numbers for that so that we can make sure we can offset the cost if we throw it wide open right now. That's why, as part of the motion, we have recommended that it be looked at going forward by council to give staff a chance to look at the numbers. See, the number of Ukrainians, we have a good idea of what that's going to be, and it's fairly affordable for us to do that, and it's just the right thing for us to do right now. I would agree with you that if we can do it, we should extend it to all refugees as soon as possible. But I would just appreciate if we could get some feedback from staff between now and council given to you and I, so that we can consider whether this is a friendly amendment or not. Is that fair?
Yes, I'm not I'm not comfortable with the second whereas, where we're just going to look at it in the future. I'm uncomfortable supporting a motion, supporting a policy that separates out refugees based on their country of origin. I would very much like to see this extended to, it's not really a revenue issue because these families and refugees arriving here are not already paying for transit, and now we're giving it free. So I would, yes, I would be happy, Chair, to wait until council to put forward whether it's a friendly amendment or an amendment. But I struggle with how I would support. I mean, I guess we could support this today going forward, and then I guess I'll ask clerks what that would look like then in terms of an amendment at council. I don't want to vote against this today. I just want to ensure that we have an opportunity and the information. I understand what you're saying, Chair, that. But yeah, I'll ask Caitlin perhaps what that would look like, what that amendment would look like at council if we've said yes today.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, if the recommendations in the motion are approved by the commission today, it would rise to council at the meeting next week. And at that point, it would be in order to submit an amending motion moved and seconded by yourself and the chair or yourself and any other member of council to amend any part of that, the first or second therefore be it resolved.
Okay, and we could, and then just to staff, we could get that information in advance of council, and because I will put forth that I will be submitting an amending motion at council. So if we could just get the information that we need to make that decision ahead of time. I'm sure that's a yes. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so we're good. Thank you, Councillor. Commissioner Olsen, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I certainly support the desire to help the victims of this just hideous and unconscionable action by Russia against Ukraine. I have a couple of questions. So with respect to the people's definitions as refugees, my understanding is there are two kinds of refugees. There's government assisted and there's privately sponsored. And I don't know the extent to which either of those groups have actually been identified at this point. I don't know if most of the people arriving are just arriving on some kind of visitor visa or what have you. But if they are refugees, if they've been designated, if you will, as refugees, I think they are entitled to some support either from the government or from the organization that has privately sponsored them. Before we go ahead with this, I'd like to have some understanding of the status of the people that truly we are identifying as refugees, whether they're visitors. whether they're actually entitled to support from either the federal government, the provincial government, any private organizations. So before we move forward, just have better information so that we know what we're doing and that we're doing it the best way and most efficient way that we can. I would suggest that staff or somebody from the City of Ottawa get in touch with the Immigration Department, IRCC officials there. They would probably be able to tell you more about the status, and even the provincial immigration would probably be able to tell you something as well. So while I support the desire, I'm leery of supporting the motion, only because I don't really know what it means, to tell you the truth, with respect to numbers. Are these people just visitors? Or are they truly refugees? I don't know at this point.
Okay, Commissioner, if I could, it might help alleviate your concerns. The second, therefore, be it resolved, says so that the agencies can distribute these passes to their clients who are not receiving transportation funding from other levels of government.
Yes, but I would like to know the support that they are receiving from government. Is this, if they are receiving support for transit, for example, does this make the motion moot, or is it actually, necessary? So I would like to receive more information. As I say, I support the desire. I support the Ukrainians, of course. Just want to make sure that we're doing something that is truly effective.
Okay, Renee, would it be possible to try to undertake to get some of those answers for the Commissioner?
Yes, Chair, will do.
Thank you. I think with the agreement of Commission, when the information's available, if you could just distribute it by memo so that we all get it as soon as possible, that would be greatly appreciated. Councillor Brockington, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I do want to thank you for your motion. A number of us were copied on an email from the local Ukrainian Congress asking for this, and I do think it's the right thing to do, but I do think it opens up the need for a greater dialogue about how we can facilitate and assist refugees that come to Ottawa and acknowledge the financial, all the other challenges that our new residents have faced coming to Canada and coming to Ottawa, but the financial challenges and just getting on their feet, and a transit pass or transit assistance, I think, is the right thing to do. So I thank you, Chair, for your motion. I think on Councillor McKinney's point, I think we do need to look at all refugees. Obviously, Ukrainian refugees right now are top of mind, but in my ward, we welcomed Syrian and Afghan refugees recently, more in the recent couple of years, and they are as deserving as any other refugee if we're going to go down that road. So I think for Council, Chair, what I'd like to know is just very high level stuff. How many refugees does the City of Ottawa welcome on an annual basis? Like what type of numbers are we looking at? And what type of financial assistance do they receive from the government? What type of assistance do they receive, not just for transit, but just for living expenses, so we can have a better understanding of how tight things are and why your motion is important. So I think the best thing to do is that we support this today, get this through the Transit Commission, and if colleagues want to refine it further and get more information before it comes to Council, that we have time to do that. But I do think this is important enough for us to support today. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for your support, Councillor Brockington. So no other questions. Can we say this motion is carried?
Carried.
Carried? Okay,
Carried.
thank you. Thank you very much. And we will, I appreciate Renee and staff's effort to try to get us that additional information before Council. Is there any other business? No? Okay. The meeting is, we need a motion pursuant to 89.3 of the procedures bylaw is required for the committee. Oh, sorry, that was for new items. So can we adjourn, please? Motion to adjourn. Agreed?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. The next meeting will be on Wednesday, May 18th, 2022. And the media availability will begin in 15 minutes, so that'll be 12:45. Okay, thank you all.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank
Bye
you.
now.
Bye, everyone.